On February 5th, 2026, something happened that most people completely missed, and it may be one of the most consequential moments of our lifetime. For the first time since 1969, that's over 50 years, the United States and Russia have no legally binding agreement limiting their nuclear arsenals. None. Zero. The last treaty is gone. No caps, no inspections, no transparency. Two countries holding nearly 90% of the world's nuclear weapons are now operating without a single rule between them. And yet, almost nobody is talking about it. Today, we are going to change that. Because to truly understand why this matters, we need to go beyond the headlines and into the theory. Specifically, we are going to look at this moment through the lens of nuclear deterrence theory and ask the question that keeps IR scholars up at night: does the bomb still keep the peace? Hi, I'm Radhani, and this is Dr. Pandey on Politics, where every video we take one global event and run it through one big idea. Let's start with the basics. The new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty was signed in 2010 by President Obama and Russian President Medvedev. It capped each country to 1,550 deployed strategic nuclear warheads, 700 deployed intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine launched missiles, and heavy bombers, and 800 total deployed and non-deployed launchers. But the numbers aren't the most important part. What made New START genuinely remarkable was its verification regime. It established one of the most extensive verification systems ever negotiated, including on-site inspections, continuous data exchanges, and government-to-government notifications about missile tests, weapons movements, and changes to nuclear forces. In other words, this wasn't just a promise. It was a system of trust, built brick by brick, inspection by inspection. Its expiration marks the end of an era of US Soviet and US Russian arms control that began in 1969 with the SALT I negotiations. For the first time in decades, there is no treaty constraining the nuclear arms race. So, how did we get here? Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 directly contributed to New START's collapse. On-site inspections, already halted during COVID, never restarted. In February 2023, Russia formally suspended its participation, rejecting inspections and data exchanges. And in February 2026, the clock simply ran out. Now here's where it gets interesting. To understand why this is dangerous, we need to understand the intellectual architecture behind nuclear arms control, and that means talking about Kenneth Waltz. Waltz is the father of structural realism in IR theory, but he's also famous for a deeply counterintuitive argument that nuclear weapons stabilize international relations. His logic, laid out in The Spread of Nuclear Weapons, is straightforward. Nuclear weapons make the cost of war so catastrophically high that no rational leader would ever start one. This is the logic of mutual assured destruction, MAD. If you strike me, I strike back, and we both cease to exist. The bomb paradoxically keeps the peace. But Waltz's theory rests on a critical assumption: rationality and information. Leaders must know what the other side has. They must be able to calculate the consequences of escalation. They must believe that a first strike is not survivable. This is exactly where START came in. Arms control agreements emerged precisely to dampen this dynamic by clarifying capabilities and intentions and reducing incentives to assume the worst. Without New START, each side must rely more heavily on intelligence estimates and worst-case planning. In a crisis, this creates pressure to launch on warning, forcing decisions within minutes before an attack is even fully confirmed. Launch on warning. Think about that phrase for a moment. A decision to end civilization made in minutes, because both sides are flying blind. So where are we now? Russia and the United States together hold around 5,459 and 5,177 nuclear warheads respectively, and there are now no caps on how many they can deploy. China's nuclear stockpile has nearly tripled since 2020 and is projected to reach 1,000 warheads by 2030. The US position, articulated by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, is that no future arms control deal can happen without China at the table. China, for its part, has never participated in any strategic arms limitation agreement. There are no bilateral or multilateral negotiations underway, and none are even planned. Nuclear armed states have entered a phase of qualitative and, to a lesser extent, quantitative arms race. And critically, the most likely near term consequence is not a massive numerical build-up, but a qualitative arms race. Greater emphasis on hypersonic delivery systems, missile defenses, counter space capabilities, and AI enabled command and control. This is where Waltz's framework starts to crack. MAD worked in a world of slow moving ICBMs and human decision cycles measured in hours. A world of AI assisted launch systems and hypersonic glide vehicles that reach targets in a minute is a categorically different environment. The rational, calculated logic of deterrence theory was not designed for this. Both countries are developing delivery systems that fall outside older arms control categories. These innovations can create the illusion that one side might gain an advantage, weakening deterrence and encouraging the belief that crisis can be exploited. So, does nuclear deterrence still work? The honest answer is we don't know. And that uncertainty is itself the problem. Waltz's theory was elegant and for decades arguably correct. The great powers did not go to war. The bomb did keep a kind of brutal peace. But his theory assumes a stability of information and rationality that New START helped manufacture. Strip away the verification regime, inject hypersonic weapons and AI decision systems, and add a third nuclear peer in China that plays by none of the old rules, and you have a security environment that deterrence theory was simply never built to handle. This may not be the end of arms control, it may be the beginning of a new era that must adapt to the moment. But right now, in early 2026, that new era has not arrived. We are in the gap. When states cannot read each other's intentions, when transparency collapses, when worst case planning becomes the only rational strategy, that is precisely when the security dilemma becomes most lethal. The last treaty is dead, the guardrails are gone, and the world is too busy watching other crises to notice. Maybe that's the most dangerous thing of all. If this video made you stop and think, that's exactly why this channel exists. Subscribe, share it with someone who cares about the world, and I'll see you in the next video.